Coming up in this edition of Southern Newsweek, Aotearoa's National Day is celebrated around the southern region. The Kaiapoi community has doubled the celebration on Waitangi Day with the opening of a new softball pitch. And a ferry located at Tuapeka Mouth turns 125 years old. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. Aotearoa's National Day was celebrated across the south on Saturday, with gatherings held in Queenstown and Bluff. Organisers say it's important to celebrate community and the treaty partnership on the day.
About 500 people attended the Waitangi Day celebrations at the Te Rau Araha Marae in Bluff, where the tribal chiefs signed the original treaty 180 years ago.
There were three places in the South Island, Te Waiponema, where the treaty was signed. That was at Banks Peninsula and in Otago and Ruapuki, just across the water there. So for Maitahu we celebrated turnabout 1 year here, another one Otago, another one up Banks Peninsula in Ormond. So that's why we're assembled here today. It's our turn here today.
Ngaitahu leader Sir Tipene O'Regan spoke of his hopes for a growing partnership between the Crown and the local tribe, especially regarding the tribe's sovereign authority over rivers and lakes in the area. Skerritt says the Treaty of 1840 formally paved the way for the colonisation of New Zealand with positive results.
And so people came here from overseas and to go through a citizenship ceremony, they've got a right to call themselves a Kiwi, and that's something pretty special. The children, they're born Kiwis.
Meanwhile in Queenstown, the Waitangi Day celebrations were a multicultural affair. Hundreds gathered on Earnslaw Park on a perfect summer's day to enjoy the carnival-like atmosphere, which began with Kori Ratahi's Waiata group. The Indonesian community performed using angklungs made of bamboo tubes, and the Queenstown and Southern Lakes Pipe Band was accompanied by Irish dancers. The day was also set to include the annual Reggae in the Park concert, celebrating the birthday of Bob Marley, who had performed songs of peace, love and inclusivity up to his death from cancer at age 36 in 1981. In Invercargill and Queenstown, the South today.
And the Kaiapoi community turned out in force to celebrate Waitangi Day, not only with performances of kapahaka and pop music, but also the opening of a new softball pitch. The softball diamond is named after former Prime Minister and Mayor of Kaiapoi, Norman Kirk.
Kaiapoi Borough School's kapahaka group was just one of many from the area entertaining the crowd that turned up to celebrate Waitangi Day in Kaiapoi. For Kaiapoi High School head girl Charlie Wicks, the day signifies far more than just a day off school.
We come here every year to Kaiapoi and celebrate Waitangi Day, acknowledge that it exists, because lots of people don't. Not everybody celebrates it like a party.
Kaiapoi takes its name from what was the largest fortified Maori village in the South Island. Built around 1700 by the Ngāi Tahu, it lay on the site of a stronghold of an earlier tribe, the Waitaha. The pa was eventually besieged in 1832, just 8 years before the Treaty of Waitangi, by Ngāti Toa warriors led by Te Rapraha. Armed with muskets, they burned down the pa and killed those inside.
To me, Waitangi Day is about everyone coming together, putting differences aside and to work side by side to help each other out. And I think we should all know our New Zealand history, because I think it's very important to us.
Nowadays the town is a melting pot of Indigenous and immigrant cultures, with many celebrating New Zealand's National Day each year.
Very important to Kaiapoi, and it's great that there are still people coming and this is still a thing that happens here. And that just shows a lot about our community.
Kaiapoi suffered extensive damage in the Canterbury earthquakes 10 years ago, creating an uninhabitable red zone. Part of that area was opened on Waitangi Day as a softball diamond, with Waimakariri Mayor Dan Gordon throwing the first official pitch before the Kaiapoi Premier Women's team took the field against Papanui. The council has spent $6 million developing the park, which is named after former Prime Minister Norman Kirk, who in 1953, at age 30, was elected as Mayor of Kaiapoi. In Kaiapoi, the South Today.
And a long-running Dunedin cafe put a copy of its menu in Te Reo Māori in anticipation of Waitangi Day. Modex has been a staple in the North Dunedin cafe landscape since the 1990s, and its proprietor says this is something new for them.
Honouring the Māori language by translating his cafe's menu into Te Reo Māori. Modex proprietor Jack Bradbury says it seems about time.
Yeah, it just seemed to me like something that should be done. Yeah, we get quite a lot of people asking, oh, why'd you do that? That's quite cool, which is fine. It's a non-question though, because it should be normal, it should be standard.
He's been working on the idea for about a year and says he finally found Komene Cassidy, who is from Ngāpuhi and Ngāi Takoto descent, to undertake the work.
It actually just so happened to coincide with that. I mean, it's sort of been about a year and a half in the making. It took a long time to find Komene, who was the translator, to actually find him. It was sort of surprisingly a bit of a needle in a haystack type situation, but now I say who did it, and everyone's like, oh yeah, he's awesome. But at the time when I was looking, no one knew. You know, I had friends who worked for Ngāi Tahu who struggled at university, struggled as well, and sort of sent me around in circles.
Prior to COVID-19, Bradbury had travelled extensively and says he noticed street signs in Wales, which were in Welsh first and then English, prompting him to honour the languages of First Nations. He says the standard menu will change in both languages as menu items change. And it's just the beginning, as he plans to have more lists translated.
You know, we'll start doing the other stuff as well. So our drinks lists will be in both languages. Originally we were going to try and get it all, both languages on the one page, but it's just too much. It doesn't fit. We'd end up with sort of a 4-page book, which is a bit much. So we have them side by side. And then hopefully in time we'll do our drinks list up there, and all the other signage will be in both languages. It's quite cool. This is the way it should be, right? This is the way it should be.
With publishing the menu in Te Reo Māori, he says they didn't do it for any other reason than a belief it was the right thing to do. Bradbury says they'll be open on Waitangi Day, but won't be charging a holiday surcharge. In Otipoti, Dunedin, the South Today.
A ferry across the Clutha River has now turned 125 years old. Located at Tuapeka Mouth, the punt originally provided access to a nearby gold mining camp.
History buffs turned up to ride the Tuapeka Mouth punt as it celebrated its 125th anniversary. It's the only one of its type in the Southern Hemisphere, using the current to push it across the Clutha River. It's very reliant on water levels, which are strongly influenced by the Roxburgh Dam about 80 kilometres upstream.
We'll harness the flow of the river to go across to the other side, and then we'll come back. So at the moment we've got enough water. In about an hour and a bit it's going to drop right off. Drops like a stone. We know how much water we're going to get because we use the Tiger Regional Council's website to provide us with a graph. So we see the water that comes out of Roxburgh Dam, and it's gone up, and then it drops like a stone in, like I say, in about an hour. And we get that volume of water about 8 hours later.
Located at the township of Tuapeka Mouth, about 30 kilometres upstream from Belclutha, the punt was first installed in 1896 as a way of transporting people, horses and stock from a gold mining camp to the other side of the river. This one isn't the original, but is still over 100 years old, dating back to 1915. And it's quite an art for punt operator Tom Jones to utilise the variable flow across the river.
So the flow of the river is basically in two parts. There's very little flow on this side, but there's lots of it when we get out there. So once we get into the flow of the river, then we're fine, we'll get over there. Now coming back, it's quite the opposite, so we need to get a lot of grunt up to keep us moving across.
Depending on the water flow, the ferry tries to operate between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. each day, with no charge for anyone who might enjoy a slow but historic traverse of the mighty Clutha River. In Tuapeka Mouth, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a cat burglar is on the loose in Caversham, but it's not what you think. And Tyree spinners and weavers demonstrated their hobbies at Dunedin's Community Gallery. So catch this and more after the break. Welcome back. Hide your undies, hide your banana skins, there's a cat burglar on the loose. A Caversham moggy has his owners puzzled after a 6-month stint of bringing home an eclectic assortment of items from around the neighbourhood.
Warning, South Dunedin, there's literally a cat burglar in town.
Previously we thought that he was taking things off of clotheslines and stuff like that, but he's actually gone into a lady's office. We think maybe he was watching her and waiting for her to leave, and then as soon as she's gone out of the room, he's jumped in there and taken something, a pair of her leggings.
18-month-old Milo has delivered everything from pairs of undies and a variety of socks to takeaway bags and banana skins to his owners. Milo's dad, James Coyle, says the four-legged fiend loves spending his days outside and returning with gifts.
Alex, my partner, she's posted a few times on Facebook just of like the items he's brought back to try to get them back to their owners, and that's brought up quite a bit of discussion of people all around the neighborhood saying, oh, I've seen Milo, he's taken this, or...
Their neighbour has told him he often sees Milo walking along the fence with items in his mouth, and they usually have no idea where Milo's stealing things from. His reign of terror has been increasing, but can be weather dependent. As Coyle says, Milo's pilfering is more prolific on warmer days.
I guess as you kind of expect, doesn't tend to bring us stuff when it's rainy, tends to stay out. He will still go out in the rain, maybe a few times, but he'll open the window, he'll get mad at us for not opening the window for him, and then he'll go out, and then he'll kind of come back wet and look at us like, why did you let me out? So it's as if we did something. And but yeah, no, sunny days are when the majority of his findings come back.
The tenacious tabby has been terrorising nearby neighbours and is well known to the Caversham community. He's even busted over baby gates to borrow baby blankets.
There was actually a baby gate on her back door, and what he had done is jumped over the baby gate, gone into the sort of puppy's area, taken the blanket, and then jumped back out again and brought it back to us.
Parents James Coyle and Alex McNair say he's been on the prowl for the past 6 months. McNair posts on social media sites in an attempt to reunite people with their possessions. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Tyree spinners and weavers were demonstrating their hobbies at Dunedin's Community Gallery this week. Many of those involved say they enjoy the relaxing and meditative nature of their craft.
Weaving, knitting, carding and spinning. It's all being demonstrated at Dunedin's Community Gallery this week. Spinner Sarah Gamble says creating something from raw wool is satisfying on several levels.
I quite often get given a fleece and process it from scratch, and you can do whatever you like. It's a lot cheaper to do that than it is to go and buy some processed wool, and it's a lot more individual. Anyone can go and buy a ball of wool, but to actually make it from scratch and make something unique, you know, nobody else is going to have anything quite like it.
But you don't have to spin your own wool into thread in order to make creative works, such as this cabbage tree made of woolen felt, or this tableau of a sheep being shorn.
There's a lot more fibres available than there used to be. When I learnt to spin, I learnt with Romney and the grease, and you didn't wash it and it was all tacky in your fingers, but now you can get possum and merino and silk, and we also work with other non-animal fibres like tencel, rayon sometimes, so there's lots of opportunities.
Grant Craig uses a drop spindle for spinning wool, which is a very easy device to take with you for when you might find a bit of free time to spin some thread. He got into spinning as a therapy after a terrible speedway accident that left him in a coma.
It's meditative It takes your thoughts away from all the difficult things that you've been trying to deal with during the day. You just become not exactly focused, but quite orientated and relaxed while you're doing your spinning.
Gamble says she likes the peaceful nature of spinning and also enjoys following through with making the spun woolen thread into a finished product.
I'm mainly a spinner. I enjoy the meditative nature of spinning and creating something, but then there's a limit to how much you can have sitting around at baskets at home, so you have to think about what you're going to do next. So I started weaving after that, because weaving eats wool, and then after weaving, most people do knit or crochet.
The Spinning and Weaving exhibition is set to run until Sunday at Dunedin's Community Gallery, with many items for sale. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The life of a young man from the Waitaki who died in a tragic motorcycle accident a year ago was celebrated on a nearby golf course. 60 friends and family turned out to take part in the golf tournament held in memory of Tāne Roderick.
The Waitoa Park Golf Club, just south of Oamaru, was busy with players and friends for the first memorial golf tournament held in the memory of Tāne Roderick, who died almost exactly a year ago. His father, Nobby Roderick, did his best to remember the boy who was a much-loved character at the golf club.
I'd really like to thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a great day. Oh gosh, I just lost that for a minute. I thought I had this pretty good. Excuse me. Just have another beer on the back of the
Nobby saw his son for the last time at the golf club, this time a year ago, when Tāne took a road trip on his motorbike to the Burt Munro Classic, only to die in a fatal collision with a tourist driver who had crossed the centre line at Moeraki. Tāne had grown up in the area, trained as a carpenter, and branched out as a project manager in Auckland, and recently married.
He was a great bloke. He worked for me as a apprentice carpenter. Was very good. He even was my best man when I got married to Judy. So I couldn't let him go without having this day for him. And I just hope that you all have the greatest day and the funniest day, I hope.
In recognition of Tāne's fun-filled character, the full field of 60 players were told to expect the unexpected, such as teeing off from car tyres.
It's great to have everyone here and all the people that have helped me, and the Waitoa Golf Club. I'm proud to be a member. Great people. But just have a great day. Thank you.
Waitaki Mayor Gary Kershaw is calling for the New Zealand Transport Agency to urgently upgrade the safety of the deadly stretch of State Highway 1 at Moeraki. Near Oamaru, the South Today.
E-scooter company Neuron New Zealand has chosen Dunedin as the first South Island city for its vehicles. The company says they've designed and built their scooters from the ground up, with an emphasis on safety.
250 of these bright orange scooters are hitting Dunedin's streets. Neuron began in Singapore in 2016 and have been spreading globally since. Southern Regional Manager Adam Mewison says their scooters have been developed with a safety-first ethos.
We're a vertically integrated company, so we do our own software, our firmware and our hardware. So we don't go and get a scooter off the shelf from a third party. We build it from the ground up for commercial rideshare, and it helps us instill at the core safety.
The fleet will be available to hire across Dunedin Central, North Dunedin, South Dunedin and Musselburgh, making the city the second in New Zealand after Auckland to operate the distinctive bright orange e-scooters. Mewison says amongst the vehicle's many safety features is an inbuilt speaker, which announces changes as the ride is in progress.
If you go from a high-speed area into a low-speed area and your scooter starts to slow down, we don't want you to think, oh, why is that happening, and pull out your phone while you're riding. It will announce you're entering a slow speed area or you're entering a no service area.
Helmets are also attached to each scooter, and a voice message reminds users to wear them.
Remember to wear a helmet before you ride.
However, that's not the only incentive set to guide people toward safer scooting.
From there, yes, this makes sure they're there. Yes, we make recommendations, so the speaker will tell you, remember to use your helmet. We're going to tell them on the app, use your helmet. But that financial incentive is what really gets people picking it up and utilising it.
The vehicle's speed is limited to 10 kilometres an hour in high pedestrian areas through geofencing technology. There's also a button which will call 111 in an emergency should the vehicle be on its side unexpectedly. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, Dunedin's Otago Girls High School celebrates its 150th anniversary, and the Dunedin Fringe Festival is set to return this year. So catch you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Dunedin's Otago Girls High School celebrates its 150th year throughout 2021. Staff and pupils have taken on period costume, representing young women who have been educated at the school over the years.
Remembering the school's groundbreaking founders and the woman who campaigned for the school to exist, Learmonth Dalrymple.
It took us 7 years of campaigning. Between 700 and 800 letters were written by her. She did petitions. She had huge support from the Otago Daily Times and the Otago Witness, which were the two papers in the area at the time. But it was against a backdrop of extreme prejudice against young women being educated. So it was quite a feat for her to have fought so hard and managed to convince the powers that be that the girls deserved an education just as much as the boys.
Otago Girls High School's 150th anniversary celebrations began this week with the blessing of a new carved pare above the entranceway to the school's historic hall.
Well, one of the really special things this morning was the installation of our pare. So that's a carved entranceway into our school, which depicts the history of the school and the links between the school and tangata whenua, and also a link to the prisoners from Parihaka who laid the foundation stones for the school.
Linda Miller says many of the senior pupils researched and devised the older style games being played on the school's fields. Senior pupil Renata Herrera Rojas says it's an unusual honour to be at the school during this historic time.
I think in a way it's kind of weird because you never think that you're going to be part of historical events, you know, in like a lifetime of the school or just like the city or whatever. But I think it's just like a really amazing privilege to be able to be here and celebrate and look back and look forward into all of these new things that are going to happen, and it's really exciting.
The confident and loquacious 17-year-old has advice for school pupils and people the world over, regardless of where they are in life.
Just wherever you are in time, I think it's just good to enjoy the moment, you know, and just like, even though you might look back on things and be like, oh, I wish things were like that now, or I wish things were like that in the future and I was living in that. I think it's just really important to enjoy the moment where you are, because it's just really special to live at any time, you know.
Linda Miller says there were many more 150th anniversary events planned for the start of the year, but the school decided to delay some events until Labour weekend due to COVID-19. In Dunedin, the South Today.
After a devastating 2020, Dunedin's alternative celebration of the arts is set to return with a bang this year. Celebrating its 21st year, the 2021 Dunedin Fringe Festival has been launched with the announcement of more than 80 national and international acts.
Dunedin's Fringe Festival is coming of age, celebrating its 21st birthday this year. Festival Director Gareth McMillan says along with global COVID-19 restrictions, the significant birthday is a reason to add an online fringe aspect.
We've got 84 artist-produced events in the program, plus the Fringe itself does a few significant ones, and also we've got this year a digital Fringe. So there's a lot of artists around the world, of course, who aren't as fortunate as we are here in New Zealand, and they're not able to visit us. So if they've developed work that's suitable for a digital platform, they can also have their work as part of the Fringe Festival this year.
In 2020, the COVID-19 lockdown cancelled the event. Macmillan says after the disappointment of cancelling last year, the team spent much of 2020 nurturing the city's creative community, ready for this year's shows.
The creative sector was pretty heavily impacted by the events of last year, so we just tried to encourage them and supported them through some funding opportunities and new platforms, and we've revamped our Fringe production quite substantially to try and provide better support, and obviously just be conscious that it's a different world that we're living in these days, so we did need to make some changes to adjust for that.
This year's performances are set to include comedy, moving images and community events, as well as music, including Dunedin's Strauch, seen here in rehearsal. Macmillan says with global travel and COVID quarantine issues, many of the performers are New Zealanders. But there are a few exceptions.
Most of our artists are New Zealanders. There is a fair few internationals. There's some nativised internationals who have just been here through lockdown or might have been here as their permanent residents. And also there's the odd use of interesting technology. We've got one of our regulars, Charmian Hughes, who's over in the UK. So she's going to perform in the UK and have that live streamed into a venue with a live audience here in Dunedin.
There are set to be Fringe events across the city as well as online, all following the traditional opening night party on March 17th, hosted this year by partners in life and comedy Michelle Acor and Jeremy Elwood. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Florists across Southland and Otago are bracing themselves for the busiest day of the year. Valentine's Day is this Sunday, with hundreds of romantics expected to buy up every red rose in town.
Dunedin florists are already working long hours in preparation for the most romantic day of the year, which this year falls on a Sunday.
Sunday is our busiest day of the year with Valentine's Day. And in preparation for that, we are getting in lots of flowers, chocolates, a few soft toys, plants, because plants is a big thing these days as well.
Susan Broadley says the workload in her shop has more than doubled in the week leading up to the big day this weekend, with staff having to do 12 and even 16-hour days, dealing with more pre-orders than ever before.
We're doing about 2.5 week of work in one. Yeah.
The florist will be open this Sunday to cater for those making last-minute purchases of Valentine's Day gifts, with the shop expecting to sell more than 400 red roses on the day.
At the moment it's shaping up to be busy, but it is on a Sunday, which is generally our quietest day for Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day is named after an early Christian martyr. The day was incorporated into rituals of courtly love in the late Middle Ages, and it became popular 150 years ago through the mass production of greeting cards. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz or follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.